Wow, now that, people, is an oyster. I feel like I got this like stupid flash dance thing going on where my strap's like, I wanna live forever. Man, this is like a piece of geology. Are you still filming?
I think we should slice it up. That'll make it a little easier for actual eating.
Hey there, I'm Gary Fleener. I'm the ecologist for Hog Island Oyster Company. And today, we're gonna head out on the water to look for some giant oysters, a jumbo hog. Let's go. Whoops. If I remember right, Raul keeps a little stash of giant oysters. We just need to find one. Ah, there it is. A true cowboy oyster. You know, this is very cool. There's an Olympia oyster growing on the shell of this giant Pacific oyster. Now, the issue is, how do we open an oyster this big? Let's find out. Just to give you some perspective, this oyster might be 10, 15 years old or older. When we think about a raw bar oyster, we're talking about an animal about that size. That might be a 1-year-old. Now, if we leave that oyster out for maybe 2 years or a little more, it'll be just right for the barbecue. But this is an oyster on a different level. This is a true cowboy oyster or jumbo hog. So, let's figure out how we're gonna open this thing. I'm gonna put a towel down to give me a little support there. And I'm gonna start out with one of these knives and look for that hinge pocket. Let's see. Nope, not much happening there just yet. You know, sometimes you just gotta bring in the big guns. You know what I'm saying? There we go. So, we've now pierced the hinge. There we go. All right. Just gonna gently work that top shell up.
Two hours later.
Wow, now that, people, is an oyster.
Took you almost 5 minutes, Joe.
But it took the animal 15 years to get this big, right? Oh man, I don't think I've ever eaten a raw oyster this big. Woo! I need some courage. I need something to build my confidence. Man, it's the time.
Nope. Let's actually make a dish out of this, Gary. It took you 5 minutes to open it. We might as well do a little celebration. This is basically a take on traditional Spanish escabeche. So it's basically a sauteed pepper and onion relish that's seasoned with some vinegar and olive oil. Today I'm gonna add some spiciness to it. So we've got some red Fresno chilies and a serrano pepper. And then to make it a little more oyster friendly, we're gonna add some fresh citrus. We have a Seville orange, which is a type of, it's a winter orange, and it's kind of got a sweet and kind of like sour flavor to it. So first ingredient, we're gonna slice up some onions here. This is a white onion. And we want the onion to be pretty thin because we're gonna do a quick saute. So the onion still has to cook a little bit in the pan, but not caramelize too much. So we want it nice and thin. Set this aside. And we have a serrano pepper here, so these are a little bit spicy. I really like the flavor. It's kind of a nice bright spiciness, used a lot in Mexican cooking. I'm just gonna do some sliced rings here. And depending on your spice level, how much you like spiciness, you can also use a jalapeno pepper. And that's a milder chili, so not quite as spicy. And I also have some red Fresno chili. So these are red jalapenos or ripe jalapeno peppers. So we'll do the same thing, just kind of slice them into rings. Right, next ingredient, we have some garlic. So just slice up some garlic here. Here we go. So this can go in this little bowl right here. Set that aside. And next we'll just cut these oranges up, ready to be juiced. And then we're also going to add some fresh oregano into the mix. And we'll just kind of break it up a little bit. We don't need to chop it up or anything. And then to garnish, we'll use some fresh parsley here. Since we're not going to slurp this oyster, I think we should slice it up. That'll make it a little easier for actual eating. But we are going to try to save all the juice in there. That's going to be part of the sauce. So let's take this guy out of the shell that Gary so nicely shucked for us. And this big adductor right here, that's the sweet spot in the oyster. And it's so big, I think we can almost use it like a scallop. Gonna cut it right out of there. Set that aside. I've actually never really sliced a raw oyster before. This is kind of an interesting sensation. It's actually staying together pretty well. Okay, so we're just gonna put it back in its shell like nothing happened. There we go. So we're gonna start out with some extra virgin olive oil here. We want quite a bit, just to get it a nice, it's almost like a dressing idea. So you wanna have a nice kind of emulsification with the oil and later the vinegar. And once that's hot, we're gonna throw in our onions. Get those sizzling a little bit. And along the way, we're gonna add some salt. So we're using our Hog Island Salt Works here. A little salt there. We'll just give these a couple minutes. Start getting them soft, and it's okay if they get a little bit of color on them too. So we'll just kind of leave them alone in the pan there. Okay, so now our onions are getting a little soft. I'm gonna add the next ingredients. We have our oregano here and our peppers and garlic. So we can just put those all in there together. We'll add a little bit more salt. I want to salt early and often. There we go. We still want a nice crispness to the veggies, so just kind of a really quick saute here. So next we're going to add a little bit of, this is smoked Spanish paprika, since we're doing a Spanish style escabeche. We want to add it a little bit towards the end of the cooking just to make sure that we're not going to scorch the paprika, but we want it to still infuse the oil. Just starting to smell really good. Add a little bit more oil. It's a little dry. You really want to see the vegetables sizzling in oil. So those are looking nice and lightly cooked. So we're going to add our vinegar. This is just champagne vinegar, but you can use sherry vinegar. You can use a rice vinegar. Whatever you have in hand, just I think you want to use a milder vinegar since we're going on an oyster. And the last step, we'll add some of our Seville orange juice here too. And like I said, these oranges are pretty seedy, so we want to make sure that we get the seeds out. Give this a quick taste. I'm gonna eat more salt. Even though oysters can be briny or salty, we do want to add salt to our finished dish. It's going to be great because this salt was harvested from seawater in Tomales Bay. This oyster is grown in Tomales Bay, so it's going to have a really nice affinity. All right, so our sauce is boiling. What I'm going to do is just put it right over the oyster. Spoon some of this juiciness over there. So peppers, onions, some of the oregano, lots of the sauce. Okay, here we go. Ooh. Add a little bit of chopped fresh parsley to garnish. So this is the adductor mussel. I just sliced up, and it's basically like a scallop. It's really nice and sweet. It's got that intense like meatiness to it. So we're gonna actually do an oyster two ways here. So we've got our oyster sliced below, and we've got our oyster scallop on top. All right, so now we got a cowboy oyster ready to taste with our friend Gary. Hey Gary.
I can't believe you
Look
took
what we
away
got.
the oyster. Oh my, wow.
Oops.
That looks incredible. Can I try it?
We gotta try it.
All right.
Yeah.
That just looks fantastic.
It's like an oyster steak.
That is fantastic. Now that is what you do with a giant oyster. Actually, it's really good. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
watching,
watching.
everybody.